Hey y'all, this is Lydia. I have two messages coming in right now. One is allow self-love to be your discipline, and I'll explain that in a moment. And the second one is take responsibility for the vibration you're in when you take action on something. And these two things are very powerful right now because with Neptune and Pluto together in Pisces, in their home signs, it's amplifying everything, and our creative power is also amplified. And this creative power isn't necessarily, it's whatever we put our energy into, right? It could be something very expansive, beautiful, bright, abundant, and it could also be lack. It could be poor me. It can be low self-worth. It can be things that don't serve our highest light and our highest expansion. But the goal of this astrology and the goal of all these transits we're going to right now is heavily rooted in breaking us out of the past, breaking us out of preconceived notions so that we can take action in a whole new way. And a big part of this is also coming into a more expansive and higher understanding of what it means to be creative and how we are always creating because we are creator beings. Now, for me, I am a 5-2 manifesting generator. And even though I have a lot of Virgo energy and I am a Virgo, being in routine and being super organized and having a plan actually doesn't serve me, it keeps me trapped. That energy is actually quincunx my North Node, which is in Aries. So my destiny point is to be impulsive, to be spontaneous. So coming into a discipline has been something in the past that was very challenging for me. And I noticed since I completely turned my life around and decided to go in a completely new direction back in 2019, what ultimately brought me into a discipline and what ultimately got me into grooves and got me into an ability to focus and to really hone in on what my intention was calling for me in any given moment and really committing to that and being in that disciplinary energy had nothing to do with trying to, had nothing to do with, having a list or having a schedule, which that might work for some people. What it came down to is my self-love. And when I really tapped into having my own back like I would someone I loved intensely and unconditionally, when I started to love myself in that way and to really start embodying that for myself first, is when I started to get the motivation to do things that perhaps I had resistance to before. And to really also be in a disciplinary energy of being able to show up on a daily basis or being able to show up when I am meant to and being in that divine flow. It all came back to self-love. It didn't come back to, trying to make something work or trying to figure something out. It literally could have nothing to do, just the act of drinking water or washing my face every day, things that I would, in the past when I was younger, I would just put on the wayside. And then going into a space where it's like, okay, but I really want to do these things because I feel good when I do them. Going from that to, okay, I'm going to do it and I'm going to show up to it, even though I might not be in the mood right now. I know if I don't do it, I'm going to be in an energetically misaligned place if I let it pass and I keep putting it aside and keep procrastinating. So I'm going to do it now. And that, again, came from being in that energy of self-love. And on the other hand, also taking responsibility for the vibration, we take action. And this is dealing specifically with, taking action on things that we want to build and create for ourselves on one hand, but it's also getting down even more detailed and perhaps even to a deeper realm of the understanding that we're always creating and we're always planting seeds, and everything we do is a seed that ultimately sprouts and ultimately gives a return, whether that be a negative return or a really positive return. So really taking responsibility for that, especially as Saturn has officially moved to 19 degrees of Aquarius. And that 19 degrees is Taurus, the 1 to the 9 is this idea of taking action from the heart. The 9 is an Aries ruled degree. The 1 is a Leo ruled degree, the heart. And together they add to a 10, which in step astrology is Taurin. It's a Taurus energy of creativity and fertility and also beauty and abundance and pleasure. So in order to really seed those things in our lives, we have to take responsibility, Saturn, for our vibration, Aquarius, the responsibility of where we are energetically when we go into something, when we begin something. Because if we begin something in a state of fear, even if that fear isn't necessarily on the surface or something we can pinpoint, in something that is very overt, perhaps it's a subconscious fear, an underlying fear, it will also seed in whatever we do if we're beginning from that space. And even that comes back to self-love and to really being honest with ourselves about what we need and what we want, and going into those uncomfortable bits as well, so that we can see light, so that from the root, from the base, from the foundations of everything we do, there is love. And when we're taking action from a place of love, only abundance can follow, because love is the highest frequency. And this can be challenging, especially in such a polarized world where perhaps people, especially with the magnetic fields being so weak and us being exposed to more solar radiation, one of the side effects for that is people feeling very anxious, anxiety ridden, depression, manic behavior, people perhaps losing their minds in some sense. And that goes back to Jupiter and Neptune together in Pisces as well. There is that element of addiction and mental illness that can really be heightened with what the earth is going through and what the astrology is going through. So it's important to really bring things back to, okay, I want to build from the ground up. I want to build from the foundation up. And in order to do that, I really do have to go within. I really have to go and look within myself and be honest with what I'm seeing, and to really put love there, and to not reject it, but to accept it, and to know that in that acceptance, it is transmutation. It is bringing things out to get more air, to actually air out and to begin to heal. And whatever's expressing in our lives right now, whatever challenges are coming up, that is the healing taking place. And whatever abundance is coming in, and whatever new chapters we're heading into that feel really beautiful and bright and radiant, that's also from the seeds we have planted over the last several years. And so definitely take responsibility for the vibration of when you're taking action, and also to really go within when you're being called to, in order to make that happen, in order to be in integrity. If you want to build something that does have that beautiful energetic integrity of long lasting and bright and abundant, we have to be in those energies if we want to amplify them. And if we go into despair, if we go into any sort of lower vibrational energies, we're ultimately seeding more of that for ourselves, but not only for ourselves, but into the collective field and others. And Aquarius also rules the people. It rules that we're all connected, and it rules this idea that we, as the individual, we are contributing to the whole, and to really take responsibility for that as well. So those are the messages that were coming in. I want to pull a couple cards from this new deck that I got, which I don't remember the name of it. And I don't have the book near me, I don't think. I don't. But this is what it looks like. And we'll see what the cards have to say. But it's definitely a twofold energy. I feel a lot has been releasing. Perhaps, some of us have already been through the heavier bits, and we're coming out and feeling sort of, more open, more light in our systems now. But if you're still in it, if you're still in the density, trust that process, and don't attach to it as an identity, because another energy that we're going through now is a new sense of self emerging, and our creative potential, again, is very heightened with that. So if we go into certain, labels that aren't necessarily serving us and aren't necessarily loving or expansive, we're casting our vote for whatever it is we're putting our attention on. And words are spells, Shaman Durek was the first person I heard say that, and it definitely makes sense that words are spells. And when we cast those words, and if those words are of a low vibration or an unloving vibration or of an even warlike vibration, if separation is a very powerful thing, and it plays out in all sorts of distorted ways. So anytime we decide that we are separate from someone else, we're casting that vote for that warlike, divisive energy, and that entity that I call separation. And born from separation is all sorts of old school, long-standing entities that we know of and we're familiar with, like racism, sexism, and homophobia. So definitely get into those nitty-gritty bits, and they're coming in our face right now, of what needs to be transmuted in order for us to really heal those aspects and to allow them to fizzle out and become obsolete. Because again, what we put our attention to is what we cast our vote for and what we're feeding that energy into. So if we don't want it, it's not about being against it, it's about unplugging from it and no longer being participatory in it, because being for or against something is two sides of the same coin. So the card that I wanted to pop out is magic, which there's definitely a lot of magic in the air right now. And not to be a broken record, but again, this is, heightened creative potential. Definitely take responsibility for what you're putting your energy into. And this pentagram is a symbol for Earth. It represents Earth. But at the same time, the pentagram is also the star points of Venus. Venus star points happens in fives, which is the divine feminine, which is the boundless creative energy. And Earth is definitely manifestation. It is bringing things into a material form. So also get clear on what you want to create. And again, this doesn't necessarily mean, physical things. It could be you're creating a new ego, you're creating a new way of living your life, you're creating a new attitude, a new way of communicating, a new way of operating within your relationships. We need to take responsibility for that. And it helps to be clear on what we want and what we want to put our energy into, and trusting that we'll be guided so long as we're open and receptive. And the divine feminine is a receptive energy as well. It's not about hitting the pavement running. It's about being open to the open doors and to stepping through when we're called to step through in divine flow. Let's pull one more. Veiled, again, the divine feminine energy. Immediately I got off this card, the High Priestess. And our ability to peer behind things and to see the vibration of things and to see the frequencies of things and to feel them in our system is very heightened right now. Trust your intuition and trust the veils that are lifting as well. Don't get too caught up in, well, I'm part of this political party, or I'm liberal, or I'm conservative. So, if I'm seeing this thing and it goes against my preconceived notions, then, I'm going to go with my preconceived notions and not necessarily allow that new truth to break me open into a new identity. Allow yourself to be transformed by the alchemy of witnessing the veils lifting and not being attached to who's right and who's wrong, who's better and who's worse, but rather to observe from the witness perspective and to see with an open system, an open mind, and an open heart, so that we can get to that higher integrity, and in that also know that we're contributing to the collective energies when we do that. And one more, courage, the courage to do so, the courage to even see how what we were doing before, or our viewpoints before, weren't serving, or perhaps were misguided, or perhaps heavily biased because of a program that we fell for, which is everyone. No one is exempt from this. I think we can all look back and be like, okay, I was programmed in this way, and I see things completely differently. And in that learning, I became stronger, wiser, more loving. We're being asked to really dive into that and to begin this process of change and contribute to this process of change by changing ourselves and being open to changing and being open to being who we are without any sort of, masks or filters, and really let go of our judgments. And this is easier said than done, but boy, is it powerful. And we're really being called to do it because the earth is changing. This is earth energy. And a lot of information is coming through in our systems about what steps to take next and where we're headed and what to do now. Definitely honor that and honor change and not be so caught up in, perhaps even abandonment or rejection fears. Know that whatever is vibrating out so that something new and beautiful and expansive and perhaps even miraculous can vibrate in. Allow the magic to come in by not being fixed in our viewpoints and not being fixed in what we think is true, but rather be the witness in observing the truth. Underlying, we have stormy. Yeah, the world is going through a stormy period. It's not going to lighten up anytime soon. So this energy too, this about, peering behind veils, not wearing masks, being in our magic and having courage to do so and to live out loud. This is what is being asked for us to focus on, because that is ultimately what's going to seed stability through a stormy world going through some pretty massive changes. And I think we're just getting started. Pulling one off the top, just one more, is transformation. And this is personal transformation, but it's also collective transformation. A lot is being healed right now, and it's not always going to be pretty. So definitely stay focused, stay in that beautiful, bright energy, and support transformation by not fixating on what you think or preconceived notions of what you think is true, but allow yourself to learn, to be open, to be receptive. So I'm sending love and wishing you well. Bye.